Well, hello everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time. Having to sit back in the sitting room today. We have a 100% chance of rain today, which it's just a light rain all day, but it's in like 44 degrees outside, and the wind's blowing, and it's kind of chilly out there. I went out this morning to feed the animals and run around and take care of my morning chores, into the high tunnels and checking on my pig we got hanging in the cooler out there, and just uncovering plants because we're finally out from under the hard freezes today. This is Sunday that I'm shooting this. Came back in and told Wanda, I said, you know what? I said, we bust our tail every day. I said, I think today with all this rain going on, we're just going to sit down and we're just going to kick back and just try to chill out as much as we can today because it's just raining. I told her, I said, now I may go out to the shop and look around at something out there because I still have all my citrus trees are in the shop. Hopefully tomorrow I'm going to be able to pull them out of there. I got to look because we've got another cold front coming. I don't know if it's going to make it down to the deep south yet, but the first week in March, first week or weekend in March, let me put it that way. I don't know for sure just yet which one it is. We got another pretty good cold front coming with some heavy weather, and I don't know just yet about the timing on getting these citrus trees out. I have spent this whole past week planting fruit trees in preparation for this rain today, because I knew the rain was coming. I knew it was going to be an all-day event. I knew it was going to be chilly. I knew that according to what the information was given to me, I told Wanda, I said, if we can get as many of our fruit trees planted as we can, now I didn't get them all, but I got most all of them planted, this will be the perfect time to water them in the ground and get them set up, get them going good. It won't be too hot on them. I think it'll be just right. We can uncover some of our plants. And the Lord has blessed. I have to admit now, the pollen has begun to fall here. Everything is, it's that time of the year, everything's turning yellow. The pine trees are busting out, and when it ain't raining, you look and you just see these clouds of yellow stuff just blowing across the fields. You go down to the pond and all you see is yellow all around the edges of the pond, and it's the pine pollen right now. The oak trees have not actually begin to put their pollen on yet, so we got a little ways to wait for that. It's I've never had problems with pollen in my life, but my sinuses now are trying to stop up a little bit. But I was, believe it or not, yesterday I was on the lawnmower mowing, and it was so dusty that and I don't know if Wanda got any video of it or not, but it was so dusty you couldn't hardly see. I was trying to chop up all the pine straw and blow it to a certain place where we could gather it up and get it out of the way, and to uncover some of the grass, because the grass completely covered the pine straw from the winter. And it was bad. But I've been able to get a lot of projects done. Been happy about that. Got to start, by the time you see this video, hopefully I will have had the pig that Chris got for me, and me and him skint out and hung in the cooler. Hopefully by the time this video comes up, I will have it all cut up and in the freezers. I'm hoping. I ain't making no promises, but I'm hoping. So the Lord has been good to us. We've been able to accomplish a lot. And getting ready for porch time today, I sit and think about a lot of us, including me, has well, let me put it this way. Lots of times I sit and reflect back on things in my past. That's what the psalmist did in the Bible. David sit and reflected on his past, and he learned from his past how that the Lord had took care of him through hard times, and it helped to build David's faith. in troublesome times when he was going through them. Like when Absalom was his own son was trying to have him killed, when Saul was trying to kill him. I mean, when all these things was going on in David's life, and David was in the cave and he was crying out to God, saying, Lord, how long or whatever's going to happen to me and all this kind of stuff. He was able to look back on his past and see how the Lord had delivered him out of different, he said the fowler's snare. Like a bird would get caught in a snare. He would have been delivered many times from Saul, many times from Absalom. And it renewed his faith as he lived in, I think it was the cave of Abdul. He was staying in there. And it built his faith. And there's things that's going to happen in our country. I mean, it's not that I know everything about what's going to happen. It's just that I can use discernment and I can see things, and some things are spoken of in the scriptures, so we don't have to worry about it. We know those are going to happen. But I do see things happening. I can see right now that with the present administration trying to straighten up a lot of the things that's going on, or that has been going on in this country for many, many years, and they're trying to actually, quote unquote, okay, fix some of the things, which please use some understanding and some wisdom. It's all leading up to the beast system. It may sound good and it may sound great, but ultimately it's leading up to a biometric system for the beast system. But as good as it may all sound, it's going to cause some chaos. Lots of people's going to lose their jobs because they were hired to do jobs that really wasn't necessary to start with. But in order to keep the market looking good and unemployment down, things were created that shouldn't have been created, and people were given jobs to do things that really wasn't really important to start with. So lots of people are going to probably be without work, and it's going to put more people on the government system, which is basically what they're after to start with. But there's going to be loss, not only the loss of jobs, the times that we live in, and because of the food that we've been having to eat in this country for the last 25, 30 years, there's a loss of health. Lots of people are coming down with all types of cancers, and that's basically from the food you've been eating. Because most people eat from a grocery store, and we call the grocery store, me and Wanda do, the cancer center, because usually if you eat from a grocery store, at some point you're going to end up with cancer. And then you have the people who just, once you reach a certain age in life, who die naturally. There's a loss of a spouse, but then there's the unnatural deaths that happen from accidents and stuff like that. But it's still a loss, but it's a sudden loss. And all these things bring what's called oxidative stress in on our body, or anticipated stress. When you have people who live their life based on past memories, they live in what's called anticipated stress. And these are the types of stress, oxidative stress, anticipated stress, are the kinds of stresses that cause health issues like cancers and autoimmune diseases and all these types of stuff. Rather than just saying, you know what, I'm going to move forward, and my loved ones with the Lord, they're better off than they were when they were with me, and they belong to God before they belong to us anyway, so the Bible says the spirit goes back to the Lord from whence it came. So if we can ever get it in our heads, and I had a hard time with this. You could ask Wanda, if you could talk to Wanda, Wanda would tell you I had a really, really hard time dealing with the loss of a spouse at a young age. And seeing the horrors that she went through with cancer treatments and all that kind of stuff. And it just, it did something to me, and God was good to me during this time, because he raised up some people. I mean, there was a young lady that he raised up, in my life. Still a dear friend of mine and Wanda's today. I wouldn't take anything for her friendship in the world. She was my right hand many times. As a matter of fact, when my wife passed away, I called my own pastor, and my pastor didn't even show up. But yet this young lady was there within 15 minutes. She dropped everything she was doing, and she run a business. And she was there within 15, 20 minutes. She was at my house and stayed with me and did not leave, you know. And she contacted other people that she knew I knew, because, I mean, she was just my right hand. All during my wife's illnesses, she was there for me and there for my wife. She would come to the hospital and sit with us all during the nights and stuff like that. That's what true friendship is really all about, is being able to fill the needs of other people and being able to be there and to help people deal with the stresses of life many times when they come, even though they may be when someone comes down with, like my wife had breast cancer, when something comes down like that and they're only given a certain amount of time to live, it helps to deal with the anticipated stress of the day that she's not going to be with you, because you know at some point she won't be with you, and you have this stress on top of you. Well, is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be a week from now? Is it going to be a month from now? I mean, when is it going to be? The Lord allowed me to deal with this stress so that it didn't harm me too bad physically, through the use of the garden. And that's why I'm so, and y'all know, the ones of you who know me and have watched my videos for a long time know that I'm really connected to the land. I'm really connected to the gardens. I'm connected to the earth in lots of ways, because that was my way of dealing with, not only did I have to shut down 3 of my companies, the loss of the companies, the loss of income, the loss of a spouse, and then the loss of my own health eventually coming later. The only way that I've been able to cope and to deal with this has been through gardening. When Debbie passed, I had planted, before she got down really bad, the last time that she got really bad sick, I had a whole field up in front of my house planted with peas and vegetables. Another one of my areas I had planted had tomato plants. I had like 150 tomato plants. I had like a 50 to 75 eggplants. And then another one of my crops way back in the back of my property, I had many rows of the butter beans and stuff like that. And during her sickness, there was nobody to tend to them, because I couldn't actually leave the house and go out and tend to them, because she was on hospice. It was in the critical last days of her life. So they all grew up with weeds, and you couldn't tell what was vegetable and what was weeds. And I think, looking back, I counted a blessing that happened, because when Debbie passed away, I was kind of like a dog that had been held in a cage for a long period of time, that had been given his freedom, and I didn't know what to do with myself, because I dealt with her for 6 years, trying to run companies and dealing with her for 6 years, and then the last days of her life being there right by her side for weeks on end, taking care of her constantly. That's all I knew at the end. I didn't have a job to go back to, because I had shut my companies down, and it was just me, and I was in the house by myself. It was quiet. There was nobody come to see me, except this one young lady that I spoke about. She would come periodically, check on me, make sure I was doing all right, or say, hey, you want to go get a bite to eat, or some of the friends are having a get together out at a lake. You want to go out there? Well, I'll take you out there. Because at the time I didn't really drive because of some physical issues I was having, and she would come get me and take me to these places, and make sure that I still had some sort of form of life. Well, not only that, I would get up in the mornings. I've always been an early riser. I would get up before daylight and I'd go sit on the porch and I'd drink my coffee and eat my breakfast and I'd watch the sun come up. And just when it got daylight enough to see how to see things, I would head to the garden and I'd just sit down on the ground in the garden and I'd go to pulling weeds. And I'd pull till about 9 o'clock because she passed in the dead of summer, in the hottest part of the summer, in July. And it was so hot because by then it was August, you know, later part of July, and then we're going into August, the hottest part of the year for us down here, 100-something degrees. So by 9 o'clock it was so hot you just couldn't stay outside. But from daylight till about 9 o'clock, I would just go sit in the garden and pull weeds. And I'd feel so sorry for my little plants because they'd been overtaken by the grass and the weeds. But as I began to pull the weeds out of the garden, I likened it unto my own life. When I began to remove things out of my life and to begin to clean my life back up and get rid of things that really didn't matter to me anymore. My wife had passed. I didn't need the stuff that she had. I called her kids and I told them, I said, come get everything that she had. I don't want anything that belonged to her. If you kids want something, come and get it, because I have been a counselor and I know that if you're going to move forward in life, usually within the first 45 minutes to an hour, you need to change everything in your house. And that's what I had this young lady, and she called her sister to come over, and they came and rearranged my whole house within the first few hours after the loss of my wife. And I needed to get change rolling because I know that there's 7 stages of grief. I did not want to get hung up on any one of these stages. So the pulling of weeds out of this garden was much like me pulling things out of my life and looking at what's left behind. And when I got through with one garden, I would look at my poor little plants that had been engulfed by weeds. Kind of made me feel like the way I felt, how my life had been overtaken with tragedy and loss and all this. There was a loss of life, and my garden had a loss of productivity. And when I got the garden all cleaned up, within a week, I'd fertilize it, and within a week I began to see the plants, the vigor became back in the plants, and they began to bloom, and I could see new life forming in those plants. And I could see the new fruit that the plants were beginning to bear, and how that they were like finally coming out of the bondage that they had been in. And I was able to go out every day after that, and I was able to pick produce from my garden. I was able to barter with produce. I was able to bless other people with produce. I would call people and say, hey, I've got this. Do you want some of it? You know, and it would invite people to come over and give me a chance to fellowship with people. And as I saw the plants come back to life, it allowed me to come back to life and realize that even though life had been taken, I still had my life, and my life needed to flourish after that. And I needed to let God come into my life, and I needed to let Him begin to bring new people into my life. Because one of the things that my spouse told me when she was about to pass is she said, you're going to have to look for new friends. Because she knew from past tragedies in her life of having lost 3 of her children at one time, that sometimes the people that's been your friends your whole life, they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to act, so they just kind of disappear out of your life, and you make new friends. And that's exactly what happened to me. Lots of people who I were close to, I went to church with, they quit coming around, they quit talking to me basically because they really didn't know, and it wasn't their fault, they just didn't know how to communicate to me anymore because I didn't have my spouse with me. And they was afraid they'd hurt my feelings or say something that might cause me to be painful or in pain. And it took a while for me to get a grasp on that, but I finally did. And once I did, and I learned to watch the plants regrow in the garden, and I watched them come back to life once the things around them had been weeded out. And as I began to weed out the things in my life that was mine and hers, and I began to get rid of all of it, and I looked back one day and I saw my house. I gave all the furniture in my house to all of the children and everything. I gave it away. I gave it to anybody who wanted it. I said, because it was mine and hers, and I needed to start over. And I didn't want to have to look at everything in the same house that was ours, because there was never going to be an us again. It was just going to be me. And Wanda helped me with that drastically, and I thank her tremendously for that, helping me to be able to move forward. Because I was struggling even after 2 years, I was still struggling, even though I had done everything that was possibly right to do. It wasn't that I was trying to forget her. It's that I knew I could not allow myself to be bound down by past memories. And for my memories of her to be good memories, and not memories of being in bondage and bound down by what she went through, but to allow me, when I saw things, to say, hey, we had a great time when we were doing that, or when we were, I wanted the good memories in life, not the bad memories. And gardening helped me to accomplish that goal, because I took something that was a seed that was dead, and I placed it into the earth, and the earth brought it back to life. It reminded me a lot like when we die, we're placed into the earth, and we come back as a new creature on the other side with the Lord, if we do Him as our personal Savior. And as I began to correlate agriculture with life, it let me know that on the other side, she's blooming, she's doing great. She wouldn't come back if she could. And it would be foolish of me to sit here and want that, to bring her back to this kind of life when she's enjoying life in heaven. Those are the things in the way I began to look at life. And gardening helped bring me through a lot of these trials and tribulations. And today, guys, build your faith through your garden. When you go out, and most people hate weeding the garden. Me, I love weeding the garden. Just simply because of the experiences in life that I went through. I love to weed a garden, because I know when I weed that garden, that garden's fixing to come back to life. And those plants are fixing to, when you put the nutrition to them, they're fixing to just jump, because they're like, I can breathe again. Much like when you're out from under stress in life, you can go, I can just breathe again. And you can begin to rebuild your life. And you can begin to become the person that God has molded you to be. And you have to understand, nothing takes God by surprise. Even though we go through the loss of a spouse, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a child, the loss of a job, the loss of income, the loss of health, whatever it is that we're going through, God has that loss in our life for a specific reason. Now, having since lost my spouse, I can now sit down and talk to people who's lost a child or a spouse or someone like that, and I can relate to them, where before I did not have a clue. I could only speculate what I had been taught through counseling. I could only speculate about how they felt. Now I have a small inkling of some of the pain that they're dealing with, and how to better talk to a person like that. And God knew that in my life. God knew that there was going to come a day I was going to need all this. And He allowed me to go through this, and He brought me out the other side because I permitted Him to. I did not get locked up in the past like many, many people do. I'm dealing right now with an elderly gentleman who I think he's finally come around because he's now moving on with his life, but for, I don't know, probably 30 years he's been locked in the past because of the loss of family members. He's been locked in the past, and many times he had told me, well, I don't know if I'm gonna make it much longer. You know, he's fixed to be 80 years old, and he's just now realizing, I'm gonna start living. You know, and I'm happy for him. I am truly happy for the gentleman, and I'm excited for him because he's actually moving on with his life now. And I mean, that's what I'm talking about. We have to learn. We can't get locked up in the past. The Bible says the Lord set his face like a flint toward Calvary. He didn't dwell on the past things in his life. Neither did the Apostle Paul. Neither did any of the disciples or anything like that. They all look forward with their life. And today, guys, that's what we need to do. We need to all press forward and use your garden as a tool to help relieve the anticipated stress. Like lots of people have anticipated stress. There's a date in a year when a certain person that you love, maybe a tragedy happened, and every time that date comes around in a person's life, they start dreading it. And I went through this with my spouse that passed. Every year when her children had passed away on that date, I would have to take her out and do this with her and do that with her to keep her occupied that whole day so that she didn't focus on that day. And we have to learn we can't live in the past. You know, we've got to live each day like it's our last, because every day is a gift from God. And when I see the gardens and I see them flourishing, I just love it. I love life that way. I love to see new life come out of seeds in the ground. I love to see plants spring forth. I love to see them put on fruit. I love to put the proper nutrition to them. I don't like to watch them suffer and struggle because I'm trying to keep a particular kind of fertilizer there, and they're struggling because of that. They're not getting the nutrition they need from that fertilizer. Hey, I go ahead and just put what they need and just let them enjoy the time that they have as a plant and go ahead and mature and produce the fruit, because the plant doesn't know the difference between what you're putting there for it to take up. It just knows if it's there, I'm going to utilize it and I'm going to use it. And I love to see plants flourish, you know. And I love to watch the earth bring forth its fruit. Psalm 128. Go read Psalm 128, the whole chapter. It's not very long. It's just a few verses, but you know, the Bible teaches us in that the Lord loves. Blessed is the man who raises his own food and eats what he raises. That's in the scriptures. It says, blessed is that guy. Because when you see new life coming into plants and you see your own food coming and you're able to harvest your own food, you're able to eat your own food, and you're able to taste what real food's supposed to taste like instead of the store-bought garbage that we're buying, it makes a difference, guys. It makes a difference. So go out, grow you some food, build your faith, quit living in the past, and look at your garden and enjoy the fruit that it produces for you every day. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.